Success in farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient and treatment counts. Terplex Ag is helping farmers all over Iowa and the Midwest do just that. With precision ag drone technology and support from Terplex, you'll boost your productivity and make timely and informed decisions, all while reducing your costs and increasing your profit. It's time to revolutionize your farming. Harvest the benefits with Terplex Ag. Visit terplexag.com.
Hello, welcome to Williams and Blum. It is later on Sunday, the 14th of July. My name is Chris Williams. I am joined as always by Brent Blum. Bring Blum in here in a couple of minutes. I want to thank our presenting sponsor, Mechdyne, the Mechdyne Corporation. That is spelled MECHDYNE.com. They've been the presenting sponsor of Williams and Blum for, 3 years now? 4 years now? 4 years now we've been with Mechdyne. God bless them. We would not be here without them. Not only do they sponsor the show, it was their CEO, Chris Clover, who had the idea for this to become a weekly thing. It has since become a bi-weekly thing, and we couldn't do it without our friends at Mechdyne. We are in the Wild Rose Casino Studios. We are presented, as always, by our friends at Cody Road Bourbon. A reminder, we will be heading over to LeClaire in middle of August, and you can buy your tickets now. It is on Friday, the 16th of August. We will be in LeClaire for our Cyclone Fanatic Roadshow with our friends from Mississippi River Distilling. The new bottles are out. They are fantastic. They're beautiful, really. Go and check those things out. Buy them wherever you purchase your whiskey. You can see my whiskey collection behind me right now. Right over my right shoulder is my favorite bottle of Cody Road. It is the single barrel rye. That's tough to find. If you can buy a bottle of that, pick that thing up today. That is going on. We also have our golf event that is in Okoboji, and that will be on the 31st of July. So coming up here in just about 2 weeks, the Cyclone Fanatic We Will Collective big day in Okoboji. We'll be playing golf. We'll have a road show, and that's going to be a whole heck of a lot of fun. We look forward to seeing each and every one of you there. I'll bring in Brent Blum right now, as we have both had an incredibly busy weekend. Brent more so than me, because we were both booked on Saturday all day, and then Brent had an event in where you were at Iowa Falls today. Is that right?
Iowa Falls, yeah, the beautiful community of Iowa Falls. A lot of good folks up there. We had a camp with 230 campers.
Wow.
Up in Iowa. They had kids from 30 surrounding small towns up there. It was really neat.
Awesome, man. That you guys are doing a ton of that, and we will get to the Rocco Becht camp. We're going to talk about that and how it all went down. Of course, like 10,000 of you or so watched that show on Saturday morning, and we appreciate that. We had a great production. Maddie Van Winkle was going inside the huddle with Rocco Becht and the Iowa State football team, which was cool to get that vantage point. And go back and watch that if you haven't already. We had some really good interviews in there. Rocco's dad joined us. Derek Hoodger from Iowa State football joined us. Of course, we talked to Rocco. Abu Sama was on the show. Cooper Ebel. I don't want to leave anybody out. And then a bunch of people from the community of Perry talking about how much it meant for that situation to be going on. And then we had our Living Ava's Way event on Saturday night in Bondurant, and my neck is still it just cracked like 6 times just moving it.
What do they call that? A bump? You took a bump?
I took a legit bump. That is, and my guys, Miles Mendezun and Kale Rosina. They bailed me out. Thank God. A couple big boys from the Iowa State defense, John Haycock's defense, bailed me out there in my pro wrestling debut on Saturday night in Bondurant. Really a heartwarming weekend, though, Brent, because we raised a lot of money. Rocco made a big donation to Perry Youth Football, and Living Ava's Way had quite the weekend, too, as far as raising funds to do great things in the community. So that was what it was all about. And then Sunday hit, and now I'm all stressed out again, not looking forward to only having a few weeks before the season. So here we are, brother.
Well, and then out of nowhere, we're having some relaxed time with the children, and then our guy Jason Shear from the Arizona rival site, who's a legit sourced in.
He's a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's been
good
on the
guy.
show.
Decides to give some validity to the whole Florida and Clemson, or Florida State and Clemson to the Big 12 legs. And we had heard that. I mean, just kind of in the periphery. Even Dellinger talked about this week at media days, but Shear's not some random slappy. He knows what he's doing. And so I thought that's interesting. Clearly your mark with the whole open for thing. And I think there's something to it. It'll just be interesting to see how it all fits with the Big 12 and what direction the Big 12 decides to go here.
So, yeah. So here's the legit story. Blum and I and our kids and wives and our neighbors, Megan and TJ, we were all hanging out, and the kids had the pools out and all that stuff. And Blum reads me this tweet, and I go, listen, like, I was just in Vegas. Blum and I haven't even had a real show. Like, we did a different type of show. We haven't had a show where we analyze all this stuff since I got back from Vegas. And I'm always got my ear on all this stuff because this is just kind of what I'm passionate about. I wrote a column about that down in Las Vegas. So I decided, okay, I'm going to send out some text messages, and then all of a sudden I had to leave and was on the phone for about an hour and a half getting some information, not all of which that I think I'm probably comfortable to talk about on the show yet, because it's just, but I'm going to have a big update on Monday on our Cyclone Fanatic premium board and for our Patreon subscribers. If you are one of those people that unsubscribed for the off season, I would, please don't do that. One, come on, we're working around the clock. There is no off season for what we do.
There is not.
Monday, I'll have a big update. I'm going to try and stay up late Sunday night, but I can't guarantee I'll get it done. So hopefully Monday by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, you guys will have that. But here's the deal. I think that this is a real possibility. I said this on Two Guys on Iowa Everywhere earlier this week. So but I haven't run it by you that I think it's a possibility, but I also think that it's going to have to be financially motivated somewhere.
Yeah.
Like I don't see the Big 12 in its current form being like, hey, Clemson and North Carolina, or Clemson and Florida State, why don't you come over and we'll all take less money to get you guys here. That won't happen. So where does the money come from? Now, we've seen this before. We've seen ESPN say, hey, Texas, listen, we're going to create this bullshit network for you that nobody's going to watch, but we're going to pay you $20 million because they wanted to keep the Big 12 together.
That's a fact.
That's why the Big 12 didn't die in 2010. So with that, if there's somebody who has a financial reason for Florida State and Clemson to be in the Big 12, perhaps that is private equity. And we've heard those two words thrown around a lot. Perhaps that's what it is. Perhaps it is a future media partner. But I don't see ESPN doing that because they already own all of the ACC. Why would they say, hey, we'll pay you more to come over here? That doesn't make any business sense. The interesting thing that I'm hearing is that Florida State is down such a dark, deep, disgusting road with the ACC right now that the ACC eventually could be like, screw it. Just
go.
Like, essentially just let them go.
Because it's gotten really, those two in particular, really ugly right now.
And the way it was presented to me, that, I mean, if they go the distance in court over testing the grant of rights, which is what this is all about. I mean, that could take years. It'll be really expensive. And when it's all over, you're probably not going to stay together anyways. So if you're the ACC, you're kind of like, and the way it was also put to me is, does ESPN, whose name's all over that contract, really want this thing going to a big time court case? So there might be appetite by the ACC to just let them go. Well, where do they go? There's no way. I was told that the Big Ten's touching them academically. Yeah. I'm talking about Florida State here. Clemson's not as far down that road, I don't think, but I think that they're kind of letting Big Brother kind of see what happens there.
Take the punches, and they'll ride the coattails.
Yeah. And I really don't think at this particular time the SEC is lining up to take Florida State and Clemson. They already have schools in those states, and they seem pretty content. So it's kind of like you stay in the ACC, you go to the Big 12. I've even heard independence be tossed around with Florida State
Interesting.
just a little bit. So I think anything is possible right now. I don't think that but the one thing I'm confident in, the Big 12 is not going to give them unequal revenue sharing. They are not going to take less per school. If they're going to join this league, somebody's got to foot the bill. Where is that money coming from, and how does that work? So that's what I've
Well said.
learned here this afternoon.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting if you're the Big 12. I mean, understandably, Clemson and Florida State immediately jump towards the top, specifically with football, of brand recognition. However, we've talked about on this podcast, it still hasn't received a lot of national attention, and maybe it never will. The remaining schools in the Big 12 are taking less money this year and next year to get those four corner schools in, the Colorados, the Utahs, the Arizonas. You throw in the NIL compensation, you can't just continue to just take $5 to $10 million baths every year. You're not going to function. And I think this move, in my opinion, makes a lot more sense 5 years ago if you're the Big 12. But unless you're getting that financial incentive, like you said, from private equity, and this is where they come in, because obviously the Big 12 would need an influx of cash. They're going to secure those two. And or the other part that's helping the Big 12 is they do have that renegotiation part in their contract that allows them to potentially get more should other schools get in. I think it was that opt out or that renegotiation in 2028 or 2029, where in the ACC they're locked in until 2036. It's still just an awful deal. Like that is a deal that keeps on hurting the ACC, and it's ultimately going to leave
too long. I mean, the Big 12 will be up for bids again
maybe twice. Actually,
Yeah.
it's going to lead to their demise, honestly. But at the same time, in this new era, C-Dub, what do you want as a school? I mean, because I would argue I'm not sacrificing more money to get Florida State and Clemson. If I'm sacrificing, let's say it's $6 to $10 million a year, I think I'd rather have that $6 to $10 million to pay my players. I just rather than get Clemson and Florida State,
especially the playoff setup the way that it is now. Yeah,
exactly. Like I understand those two do add value, and maybe 10, 15 years from now, that actually works out to help you in the long run. But if you want to stay relevant, like if I'm a player and the SEC's offering me as a player $150,000 and Iowa State's only offering me $50,000, it's going to be hard whether Florida State and Clemson are in the league or not. And so I am of the opinion you certainly don't want to take a sacrifice to get those two in like you did the corner four. I get why you had to do that then. The compensation part for players was not on the table, and it destroyed the Pac-12, which you needed to do if you're going to survive in this new era. But it seems to me at this juncture, the Big Ten and the SEC are comfortable with where they're at. Now, will they eventually expand? Perhaps. But it seems as if those two are very much on that stalemate of neither of us really want to add anymore because our schools don't want us to add anymore either because it's going to make the league even harder. And somebody's got to lose. And that's where I keep coming back to is I believe those two conferences still need a third conference, maybe even a fourth conference to exist because somebody still has to lose. And yes, they may make more money, but it seems to me at this juncture that Super League is not going to take off. There's not going to be a top 35 or a top 40.
I don't think it will either.
I think we're in a good spot from that standpoint. And so if you're Clemson and Florida State, yeah, I mean, ultimately, would they rather go to the SEC or the Big Ten? I'm sure, absolutely. But you go there, one, they probably don't really want you. I know Florida doesn't want Florida State. South Carolina doesn't want Clemson. Like, that doesn't help those schools. They won't be for that. But then if you're them and you go to the Big 12, you instantly can probably win the league, which is super attractive if you're trying to get to a playoff. And so I do think it's more realistic than even I gave it credence to 2 weeks ago. But I'm even at the Big 12. I'm like, I don't know. Like, if you give me, hey, Blum, you have $8 million. Where do you want it? Do you want Florida State and Clemson in the league, or do you want $8 million to pay your players? I'm paying the players. I just am. Like, give me a chance with my $8 million paying the players and getting those two brand names in the league.
The other
Maybe
thing
that's
to
short-sighted.
add to this too is, again, like, this is kind of complicated, I think, for just regular Joe Schmo who likes to go and watch the Cyclones play. And I apologize if I'm talking over your head when it comes to this is geeky stuff. But you have to realize ESPN owns 100% of the ACC's television contract. So they're getting paid whatever the round number, like 36 million a year or whatever
Per
it is. I don't
school,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, whatever the number is. Well, the Big 12 schools are making more. The point is, why would ESPN bid against itself and up its the only way you would do that is if you want to kill off these other schools and get them out of the league.
Right.
But my point, though, the greater point here is if the ACC has a bad television deal, guess who has a good one? ESPN. They're getting a bargain with that ACC deal. So, like, there's got to be another player here. If it's it's really, really a fascinating deal.
It is.
And again, like, I haven't heard much of anything of anyone who has any knowledge of this stuff that believes that these grant of rights will not hold either.
Yeah, they seem pretty locked.
Now, what would
solid.
be the test is if Florida State and the ACC went to court. And
Yeah.
again, like, does that benefit the ACC and ESPN to be in a 3-year lawsuit with Florida State?
Great question.
I don't know.
And that's
Maybe
maybe you settle and then they jump to the Big 12 where you have assets there. Because I think
or again, the independence thing, and they could get a streamer.
there you go.
They could get a tech company. Maybe Peacock comes in and or NBC's like, we're gonna have Florida State and Notre Dame games, and we're gonna put them on Peacock. Maybe Amazon, it's got the NBA. I don't know, but I also don't know if Florida State alone is worth
Totally agree.
more than what they're getting with the ACC. And where are you going to put your other schools now, or your other teams?
Yep. I think the interesting part here, what I'm reading the tea leaves is Florida State and Clemson overestimated their value to themselves. I think they probably thought we're going to get the Oklahoma and Texas treatment where the Big Ten and the SEC will fight over us. And what you're starting to see is there's getting a little common sense coming to college athletics where all of these schools are like, wait a second now, somebody's got to lose here. I was talking to somebody and they made a really good point. Name the 8 worst teams in the SEC right now. It's really hard to do. Like, you can only say Vanderbilt once.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's got to lose. And so you might have more money, but you're going to spend all that money in buyouts.
Well, I mean, like a school that I follow because of my family in South Carolina, they have a ton of money. Like, super passionate fan base.
Yeah.
Arkansas is the same way.
Yep.
Arkansas, but like but they're not good. Like they lose.
They're not as good as LSU and
yeah, I mean, they're
Alabama.
fine, but like it's hard. Like, look at Florida.
Yeah,
like
5-7 last year. Whatever.
I know it's incredible. Like, none of it really is. And again, I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm saying if it does, somebody's got to want it to happen. That's not
currently in the system.
Wendy Winterstein and her colleagues in the Big 12. Like, they're not going to be like, yeah, let's do this. Bobby Bowden coached there. They do the tomahawk chop. That Dabo Sweeney's a swell guy. That ain't happening.
Yeah. I think, from the good side for the Big 12 may actually have, well, they certainly have more leverage than they did a year ago with this whole thing.
And props to your mark on that.
Yeah, I mean,
the perception of the league is much higher than it was.
It's already changed quite a bit, but it's a realistic conversation. If you're the Iowa States of the world, like, do we really want this? And again, you just have to factor in, you have a $22 million, up to a $22 million expenditure that you did not have when the last round went, and that is the player expenses. And again, if Iowa State is not going to max out on the NIL payments, and it sounds like they're not going to be able to get there right away, I don't want to sacrifice another $6 to $10 million to let Clemson and Florida State in, because I'm not going to get even if my conference value is that much more, I'm not getting a player for a third of the value that he'll get somewhere else because I've got Florida State and Clemson in my league. It's just not going to work that way. It won't work that way. And so I think this conversation has gotten a lot harder than it even did a year ago at this time. Now that NIL compensation is a big part of it.
Want to thank a couple of our sponsors, and we'll continue on with this conversation here. We'll have a few more hats today. I apologize, but we didn't get Wednesdays done because we did the Wednesday show in Perry, and we had all these amazing guests and people from Perry. I didn't want to be stopping to do ad reads, so that's why. First of all, our buddy Colin Newell with Farm Bureau Financial Services. Colin, he insures both me and Brent with all of our homes, all of our auto. Former Iowa State Cyclone, of course. Brock Purdy touched his rear end a bunch of times.
That's a fact.
And did a hell of a job. He's saving up both of us hundreds of dollars per year. You should try him out too. Colin, don't be a fool. Go with Newell. Farm Bureau Financial Services. I want to thank our friends over at Kelderman Manufacturing as well. Love my main man, Jeff Kelderman, become a really good friend of mine. Mark Steck, all the guys down there at Kelderman. They do a great job. Kelderman.com.
Kelderman sent me a text today. He sent both of us a text. We're maybe planning an Arrowhead Stadium Iowa State Kansas game tailgate with Kelderman and we will. Working on
That'd
it.
be cool. That'd be cool. We'll give it a shot.
You know Kelderman would do it upright.
Oh, you're damn right he would.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't do anything.
We'd have the big screen televisions out there, the jacked up trucks, the whole thing.
Absolutely. Also want to thank our friends over at West O. So I'm down in my bar because I still don't have my office. I got all my West O beers that are right here. I'm going to show you a little bit of what I got. Okay. I like this one a lot. This is the Smoked Red.
Oh, buddy.
This is one of my favorite beers that they do. I'm just not drinking it right now because it's 100 degrees out.
Yep, it's a classic. What else we got?
Another classic right here is the Cocoa.
That's kind of the stalwart right there.
Well, this is like their trademark, right?
Yep.
Like this is when people
got
think
them going.
Yep. Other than Ames Lager.
Well, I mean that's the new kid on the block.
And this one is really interesting. Have you had this one? The Finn McCool?
I have. It's the Irish one, right?
Yes. Imperial Irish Stout with potatoes. You ever had that? Have you had that one yet?
I have. It's again probably not what I.
None of these are summer beers right now.
Yeah. I had their shandy today though, and we were sitting by the pool.
Oh,
and oh my gosh!
I had the soaked.
We had the soaked out there. We had the shandy. Man, that hits a spot today.
The soaked is like that's as good as it gets.
We need to make again. I know they make so much good stuff that we need more soaked available around. So I did hear, hey, good news. This is great news. Ready for this news?
I want news. I'm a huge news guy.
Found out this week that the local distributor handles pretty much most of the state, Central Iowa, Dahl Distributing, just ordered, I think, like 10,000 cases of Ames Lager for the first couple of football games.
Well, that's a relief.
So that's are going to be and I know we obviously were up against it a little bit last year in that.
Last year it was like a goose chase, like everybody's just out looking for it. Yeah, so but it made it kind of fun though. Like you're like, hey, but Cyclone Liquors has it.
This will be a lot easier.
Has it. Yeah.
So here's the neat part. So I think last year they had like 1,500 cases available before football season. This year's gonna be 10,000. So it's gonna be more readily available. And according to those folks, and again, this is somewhat third hand, but I'm going with it. It's basically the only NIL beer now that's selling at all. So let's keep it up, would you please? Like
I've heard that too. Yeah.
It has made a huge difference. It's honestly why, and it absolutely is connected why we're able to do stuff like the Rocco Becht camp and do some really neat, good things, and obviously helps the players, but it's impacting the community as well. And all you need to do is buy the good stuff, the Ames Lager. So keep scouting it out. It should be more widely available once we get to football season. I can't wait that first game to see Ames Lager all throughout the lots.
And then you were there. I was disappointed when Maddie Starr from Lincoln, Nebraska rudely interrupted. I was thanking the crowd for being at the event that we had for Living Ava's Way. Again, we had a couple of Cyclones there who, thank God they had my back, because this pro wrestler from Nebraska interrupts me, assaults me in the ring, and Blum is just laughing and just standing back there drinking. Not a care in the world. Did you think about interfering in that at all and having my back?
I mean, you had good help there. I wasn't gonna
Not at the
do much.
time.
I mean, you know me, like if it comes down to a debate on like policy or something, like maybe I can help. I was not helping you against that guy. He, I was gonna throw out some numbers about how Nebraska's had 0 college football playoff ranking appearances since 2017, and Iowa State has had 22. But that wasn't stopping this guy. This guy was relentless. He was being obnoxious, and I knew you had Menazun and Brazina on your back, so I felt okay.
My point is, I was going to give an ad read to our friends at Game Day Men's Health because I was like,
You-
I'm all
you
teed
were
up
ready
out
to go.
there.
You were puffed
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
I was ready to fight this guy. Like
Yeah.
I was fired up, and Hassel and I actually had the AEW World Champion on. That's the one that's on like TNT. It's like a real big time wrestling organ. His name is Swerve Strickland.
It's one of the great interviews you've ever done.
And I asked him if he had low T and if he needed any testosterone shots for my friends at Game Day and Men's Health. And you should have seen how insulted this man was. Like,
Yeah.
he was like, "What? You didn't just ask me that, did you?"
The interview didn't last much longer.
No, we shut it down after that. But I do, in all honesty, I feel great. I am almost
good
done.
out there. Like
Thank you.
You look like you belong.
Well, something like that. But
Some.
I've almost lost 20 pounds since I started going there, and they made me feel better. Like, I've made some other healthier changes and stuff too, but what you can do is you can go there, Ankeny, West Des Moines, North Liberty for your Eastern Iowa clones, and they take your blood and they do like a really thorough physical on you, and then they give you some recommendations on what they think could help. Run all your numbers. It's super safe. And my guy Bill Morris is doing great things for a lot of men. And that place is busy now, too. It's awesome. There's a lot of people that are going in, and we got to get you in. Just go in there. It's free. Your consultation's free. What do you have to lose?
Somebody stopped me in Iowa Falls today, and they're like, "Hey, you got the tee shot yet?" I'm like, "Not quite." I was like, so now Williams is literally
our friend
you everywhere.
Our friend Carrie, who was volunteering with you guys for We Will on Saturday.
Yeah, she's
I
awesome.
walked up to Rocco's camp, and Carrie goes, "Williams, you look great with all that tea." And I'm like, "Thanks, Carrie."
Carrie's awesome.
Appreciate it. Last but certainly not least, thanks to our friends at Gravitate Co-working. If you need that co-working space, go to gravitatecoworking.com and they can get you hooked up. My guy Jeff Wood, I'm guessing he was out at that IndyCar race today. He's a big IndyCar fan. I hope you had fun out there, Jeff, at the Iowa Speedway. I'm good on realignment. Are you good there, or do you want to do a little? Do you have any more meat? I guess what will? I got you. What will? What stood out to you as we'll do our Whiffles Hybrids Big 12 segment here. What stood out to you from Media Day from a football standpoint?
Football wise, I thought Matt was really good, and I thought the guys were really good. That struck me. Was neat for me because I've gotten to know him a little bit, to see a Jaden Higgins and a J.R. Singleton who the fan base knows of but doesn't know real well. I thought those guys were dynamite in those interviews. And then Bo was really good as well. Jalen's been out there for a while. I mean, he's a 2-time captain. I think everybody knows what quality of guy Jalen Noel is, but to hear about JR and some of the stuff that he said to the media was really cool. But more than anything, from a schematic standpoint, I mean, Campbell just casually dropping hey, we're thinking about the 4-man front thing. That
was wild.
That's a big deal. I mean, that's 7 years in the making. So
I'm guessing he's pissed at me too, because I don't think anybody else caught that. And I'm saying in that media scrum.
Yeah, I did. I was listening.
So then I followed up with Freeler about and that kind of became the story out of there. But that's huge news. And to be clear, I don't think we know how much it will be. It's going to be matchup oriented, right?
Oh,
that's
for sure.
Yeah,
you're not. It's still going to be a majority 3-man, I'm sure. But the good thing is Iowa State has depth on the D line, and it's hard. If you don't have Will McDonald, it makes sense. If you don't have Will McDonald, it is hard to get pressure. That has always been Iowa State's issue with the three-man front. Now, you either have a Will McDonald who can get there, or you got to bring a bunch of stuff from the edge. And one of Iowa State's best rushers last year was two linebackers, and Caleb Bacon and Zach Lovett. Well, you take those guys potentially off the field, but you put another lineman down there, and it does the same thing. I mean, this isn't a surprise to me because I always thought Iowa State would have to eventually change into this a little bit for two reasons. You have good D-line, and the Big 12 has really gone more of that run-heavy style.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to college sports on Sirius XM this week, and it's still mind-boggling to me how much the national media thinks the Big 12 just throws it all over the place still.
It's
And
insane. They're not watching the games. They're not watching the games.
It's been 3 years. Like, stop it. And it just drives me nuts. So more and more of these teams, you throw in Utah, who really just wants to be physical. Arizona and Arizona State are both somewhat, they're not overly physical. Colorado's not either. But a lot of these teams want to run the ball, and it's been successful doing that. And what you're going to see now, I 100% believe it. It's a copycat game. Michigan just won a national championship by playing what I would say 1994 football. Run it, play action. Not that people aren't going to spread the ball too, but both Georgia and Michigan are probably two of the elite programs right now.
I'm going to puke if football goes back to everybody.
It's not going to. We're not doing the option or anything, but I do think this will be the next wave.
Mike Leach is rolling in his grave as you say these things.
But when you go from the 3-3-5, it's so much easier to run the ball on that. If you do,
no, you're right.
If you're physical, you should be able to run on that. And that's what everyone's. And really, nobody ran it great against Iowa State, but last year they ran it better than they have their previous 4 years, I would say. And so now you need another adjustment. The football is a game of adjustment, and I think you're going to see Professor Haycock and the crew, because they have the ability to do it. Then you can get Singleton, Orange on Yedem and Peterson on the field at the same time.
That's what JR told me in Vegas in the little interview that I did with him. He's like, I think that it's a big deal to have me and Dominic Orange both on the field at the same time.
And I think these linebackers are good. I think they're going to have a nice
Did
year.
you hear what Bacon told me in the summer series, the latest summer series?
Yes.
About him lining up on the edge handful of times, and
he was really good. Watch the tape last year. He played that a little bit, and he was
they were tinkering the last 3-4 games. He did that quite a bit, but I really like the idea of it on a 4-man front. And to be fair, I'm pretty sure they lined up that way more than we're probably giving them credit for last year.
Great point.
I mean, it's just I've kind of just forgotten about. I'm guessing if we went back and watched every snap, there was more of that in the last 6 games than we can remember right now.
And then the other part and this really stood out to me at the Perry camp Saturday, Bacon, Brazina, and Cooper Ebel, and I saw Zach Lovett again today. Those are big guys. Those aren't small linebackers.
Brazina's he was my tag team partner. I mean, come on. This guy,
he's put on 35 or 40 pounds. Like, he is a.
Well, what did Cooper Ebel
a big
tell us?
linebacker too.
Cooper Ebel's up 40.
Yeah,
that's what he told us. On the show, man.
So I guess the point is those guys, even in a 4-3 or a 3-4, if they play down a little bit, it serves very similar purpose. I mean, those guys are all bigger than Will McDonald was. Not the same player, but sometimes I think we get lost in 4 versus 3 and where they're coming from. I just think it changes the look enough to keep teams a little bit off guard. Yeah,
the 3-man front is misunderstood by most people.
Because even when I would say it's the glory days of that 3-man front, you'd bring Marcel Spears off the edge a bunch.
Somebody's coming from somewhere.
You had a safety coming down in the box. Yeah, you always had somebody.
It's just not traditional hands on the ground.
I think so.
That
yes,
was the adjustment.
It will be. It'll probably get some news like, oh my gosh, but reality is you're just kind of moving the people around, and Iowa State really likes its D linemen. And in my opinion, those 3 guys on Yedem, Orange, and Singleton are 3 of your best defensive players. What does Campbell always say?
Players formations plays.
Exactly. So you get them on the field. Like, you figure out. It's the same reason why you play all those safeties at the same time too. They're your best players. You figure it out. And I think that's the fun part with this defense is there doesn't seem to be, and the linebacker's still a question mark for me, but they seem pretty comfortable with it. You have enough good players, you put them in space, you let them make plays. I mean, it's not rocket science here, whether it's 3-man or 4-man down.
Yeah. Did any team impress you as far as the just chatter? I mean, I'm still I think Texas Tech is underrated.
I agree with that.
I think Baylor might be a little underrated. I don't know how much, but I feel like they bounce back in some capacity. Like I just don't think they're as bad. They made enough changes. There's the dead cat bounce, new coordinator, maybe not. But I thought Aranda seemed pretty confident.
I think the one thing that stood out to me is maybe from the national media, and I got to catch myself here, is the Colorado stuff. There's a lot of people who think that they are legit going to be better, and I'm struggling.
Maybe they will be. What do you think about the Pac-12 was really good last year for its standards, right? Like that was as good as the Pac-12's been in 15 years. There's a lot of talk of, and I'd like to push back on this for one point. The Pac-12 was better than the Big 12 last year. I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah, with Oregon and
team
Washington.
by team.
And yeah.
I think it's fair.
I would agree with that.
For the first time in like a decade, that was a fact.
Yep.
There's a lot of guys out there who go, oh well, these 4 teams are going to a worse conference. They're gonna. I would push back and say like you are undervaluing the going to a new conference. It is hard. And Kyle Whittingham talked about this. You're going to these places for the first time. Stuff like, even like, where are we going to stay?
100%.
Right? Like, I mean, you guys, when you used to go on the road with Iowa State football, like, if you make the wrong decision and you get stuck in traffic, you're late for a freaking game like you guys were at Baylor, right? Like,
or like the K-State game when the catering was all screwed up. Like, things like that do matter.
And it happens more when you're not used to it.
Yes.
Those are fluke things. They don't happen every road trip. But Whittingham said, like, you're just more tense because they've been through it. He was talking about, because Utah, since he's been there, I think they've been in like 4 conferences. It was the Mountain West, the WAC, the Pac-12, and now the Big 12. And he's like, we've been through this before, and it's not easy. He's like, the good thing is we know what we're doing. The bad thing is it's not. I think that's still being underestimated by most of these national guys.
And even it was Arizona State coach Dillingham said we've had to practice our snap counts because we're actually going to stadiums with people.
He wasn't even being a dick. He was being dead serious. Like, if you watch and it wasn't a. I always tell you guys, like, when you read a quote, like, and it seems too spicy to be true, go and watch the question and how is it framed. Whittingham or Dillingham was just talking. Like, he was just talking about like the change, and he just came up with that on his own. So that's a real thing that they're worried about.
For sure. And the other thing that's different this year that will get play, and I'm guessing it's going to get to play in the next couple of weeks, is, and you've done a great job in the summer series of talking with the coaches about this, the communication in the headset is new this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I believe they're allowing iPads on the sideline. Like, there are a lot of advantages that those staffs who are proactive, there's more changes around the auxiliary than I think a lot of casual fans realize. And so what Mouser and Iowa State have really done is looked at how does the NFL have success with this?
Mm-hmm.
So Taylor spent a lot of his time actually looking at NFL, talking to NFL people. How do you use your headset? Things that the casual fan doesn't even think about. So I agree with you, though. The Big 12, you don't know what you're getting into. I've been to K-State. I've been to Lubbock. I've been to Stillwater. When those places are jumping, they're really jumping. I was very impressed with Cincinnati when I went there last year. It's different. And if you're not used to that snap count, that an actual fan base that cares, it is an adjustment. There's a reason why teams do better at home.
All right, we have next month and a half to give you our Big 12 projections. I want to talk about Rocco's camp here before we let you guys go. But first of all, thank our buddy Andrew Chaplin. Chappie came out to the Living Ava's Way wrestling event on Saturday night. It was great to see him. And he can buy or sell your home anywhere in the state of Iowa. And this is a guy who, kind of like Colin, when we endorse him, it's like we actually know him. We know his character. Chappie's the same way. We've known Chappie going back to college. So Brent, how do people get a hold of Chappie if they want to, if they're needing to get in the real estate market?
Pretty simple. Cell phone is 515-460-6454, or check out his website, andrew.hunsakerrealty.com. He's got the list of his inventory, but again, he's got some good links on there. What is my home worth, which is super helpful.
That's good to
kind of
know.
do a calculation. I mean,
everybody needs to know that.
Yep, he's just a super guy. He's the type of guy that would come from Ames just to watch Chris Williams get choke slammed by
I think
some
a
random
choke
Nebraska
slam.
fan. Well, okay, what we would call that? Bumped? Well, I mean, I'm not a wrestling guy.
In wrestling lingo, I took a bump, is how that's called. Anytime you like hit the deck, and I did hard.
How springy was the?
It's not a trampoline. You know,
Not
it's
trampoline? Okay.
No. I have like actual whiplash from that. It's not bad. Like I'm fine, but like your like muscles in the front of your neck, like they are actually like seriously sore today.
So I'm at the age when I golf for the first time in a spring. I swing so hard that my neck muscles get sore. Like that's how old I am now.
Yeah. Well, old
But
balls,
hey,
man.
when you're hitting the ball, 180 ball speed, that's what happens.
I thought you were going to say 180 yards.
Yeah.
Or 180. Is it feet or yards? What are we going by?
180 yards would be would not be a very far drive. No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a chip shot for you, right?
Yeah.
That's like what, your 7-iron?
Yeah, man,
6-iron.
6-iron.
Yeah. Okay. I've played with you enough. I know. Our friends at the foundation at Iowa State, movewhatmatters.com. I told you about another friend that came and supported us. Matt Beatty made that beautiful contribution to the companion animal fund at the vet medicine through the Iowa State University Foundation. That gift meant a lot to me when my dog Dirks died. You can do things like that, and means a lot to people, and you're supporting Iowa State University, all that good stuff. So keep that in mind. Actually, that's a really good idea for memorials and all that good stuff. MoveWhatMatters.com with our friends from the Iowa State University Foundation. Last but certainly not least, our friends at the Ivy College of Business. If you are thinking about a career change, I would consider the Ivy College of Business because you can get that online MBA, and it's super easy. You go on your time schedule. Blum knows more about that than anyone. So that online MBA is a big deal, man.
Huge deal. So again, smart guy, Miles Mendezoon, was talking to him at your event. He's a double major in the Ivy College of Business. I think he's
really.
Yeah,
okay.
I think he's got his finance degree already. He's getting his master's in accounting. I don't want to overspeak there, Miles, but I'm telling you, he's a good dude, smart guy. He's like, hey, yeah, I love the Ivy College of Business. He was super pumped when I told him that I used to work there. He thought that was pretty cool.
He's a good kid, man. Really, really nice kid. I was really happy to get to know him.
But the neat part is I think Ivy now is the most represented college in the Iowa State football team as far as degrees go. So
there you go.
If it's good enough for the process, it's good enough for you to get your online
good
MBA.
Enough for the process. All right, so this Rocco Becht camp was really cool. We're really lucky to be able to do a lot of the things we do. We both thought that was one of the coolest things that we've ever had an opportunity to be a part of on Saturday. Going to Perry, you could tell just how much it meant to everybody in that community. And what I loved about the camp was that it really wasn't crowded. Like it was, if you were a kid that went to that camp, there was a pretty good chance you were getting one-on-one action with an Iowa State football player working with you on your technique and all that stuff. And the other thing that stood out to me, and on that note, Brent, was that it wasn't just, oh, okay, it's Rocco and 15 walk-ons. Like there were starters all over the field. And I know you told me that there were a couple of instances where you had players show up to coach in this camp that you guys didn't even know were coming just because they were so excited to be a part of it. So this was a really cool event, and that Rocco Becht is an impressive young man. We're really lucky to have him at Iowa State.
Yeah, there's no. I mean, that tick morning thing is one of those special mornings. Like, gosh, we are really lucky to be able to get to do what we do. And shout out to, by the way, to Aiden and Jacqueline and Matt Van Winkle for that was really neat. I mean, from a technology standpoint, that was about as neat a thing as Cyclone
It-
Fanatics done. So kudos to you and
It's
your
probably the
team.
best production-wise thing that we've ever done.
So encourage people to go watch the YouTube. It was really neat. But I'm just, super grateful because without Iowa State fans, that's not even possible. I mean, obviously we've got Rocco, who is an unbelievable guy, but without your support, if you're listening to this, to We Will and NIL in general, things like that wouldn't be possible. And so I think, what hopefully people are realizing as Cyclone fans is they're having an impact. We're keeping our guys, which is obviously a priority, but we're doing a lot of neat things through NIL, like the thing in Perry. And if you were there, it just made you happy there yesterday. I think it made everybody was just thrilled to be there. And Chris, I think you're in the same boat as I am now. You want Iowa State to do well. It's good for you. It's good for Cyclone Fanatic when Iowa State is winning. But you're just fans of these players now too. Like they're just neat people, and you want them to do well because they are good guys. And Rocco is just one of the more notable ones. But all those guys there, it's hard to find a bad guy involved with the Iowa State football team right now, and that's really a credit to the coaching staff and the culture they've developed. And we had 10 new guys at Iowa Falls today. All of them were awesome, like just tremendous, and went out of their way. And I'm going to tell you guys, most other collectives aren't doing it that way. They're just giving these guys checks and they're cashing it and they're happy with it. Where here, they're legitimately giving back and giving back in a really neat way.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, and you're not working for the university, nor are we, but I think it was like the Perry superintendent or the I think we had the middle school principal, we had the
Yep.
football coach.
Yep.
He said, like, man, there's a lot of new Iowa State fans out there today.
Exactly.
And like that's so true. Like if you're a kid, if you're 10 years old and you meet the Iowa State quarterback and he's nice to you, you're a fan for life.
Totally.
Like that's a very real aspect of, I mean, it's like last night at our event.
Yep.
Miles and Kale are high-fiving kids, taking pictures with them.
Our friend
Like,
Stephanie was there with her 7-year-old, and
yeah,
and she
Grayson,
stood
my
up
man, he was on my soccer team.
yeah, and he's already like, hey, he won't quit talking about Kale and Miles today, and those are the things that I'm just glad that NIL has allowed us to do, because not that these guys were off limits back in the day, but they were still doing a lot of community stuff, but now you get to know them a little bit more, and if they stay for 4 years and they're out for years on end, then you really get to know them, and it's just awesome. And I hope this is just like we talked about before, whatever direction NIL heads with the university, I do hope we don't lose that community touch. And because I really feel like in the couple of years we've been at this now, it's made an impact for not only nonprofits, but just youth, kids in general, to get these Iowa State guys out there and doing some neat stuff and creating some lifelong Cyclone fans that way.
Yeah, and I hope too. It's like it was pretty easy for me to get a couple of players to come to the charity event last night, right? Send a couple texts. Hey, yeah, we'll see what's going on. You guys, and whatever. And I just worry if it's some, big
corporate entity. Yeah.
Yeah. Like no, we're not going to waste our time with that. There's no money in that. Like, no, like it matters. Like that stuff, it really matters.
Yeah.
Saturday, Iowa State made a difference in
Totally.
the community of Perry. There's
And
no doubt in my mind. And I
and
was really good content for us too, because I thought that the Anthony Becht interview was super insightful. Talked to him about coaching those Iowa State guys in the XFL. We talked about his how he works with Rocco, film, all that good stuff. And I thought it was a really good show. So I hope if you guys haven't watched or listened to that, I know it was long, but go back and give that a view.
Yeah, I went back and re-listened to that today. He had some good insight about Chad Pennington, the old New York Jets quarterback, who has been very influential for Rocco and his process behind the scenes. And he made a great point. The quarterback position is so much more than just what you do on Saturdays. And Iowa State's lucky to have just a great dude, for one, because there is so much on your plate as a quarterback, not just on the field, but then film room, being a good
Well,
teammate, doing all the stuff with, you are the face. I would say the quarterback, even in college football now, is, just as visible as the head coaches in some place, or at least the coordinators, and you better have a good one. And that's why the quarterbacks are so expensive in the NIL world.
isn't that a new test for Rocco this year
Yes,
too? If
it
we're
is.
being objective here, like he's never been the man.
He hasn't.
Nobody
Yeah,
knew who he was last year.
a
There were
year
no
ago at this
expectations.
a year ago at this time, Deckers was gone and was like, it might be JJ Cole. It
And
might be
we
Rocco.
had no idea. In fact, I think in a lot of worlds, like Cole was the favorite to win that job, and nothing against JJ. Like he was a true freshman. It's really hard to do. If he's a
Yep.
redshirt freshman, he probably beats him out because of like just sheer, size and all that stuff.
And I thought that was the interesting part that Anthony told us was with Rocco, for him, he's like, I've never been concerned about what he said is his mentals, his ability to
Yeah.
process, his attitude, his bouncing back from adversity. And I think what Rocco showed everybody last year is he has enough physical attributes to let the mentals really shine. And the thing that I thought was super impressive now looking back at last year is he throws a pick six in the Iowa game in what was his second game ever as an Iowa State quarterback. And it could, for some quarterbacks, that is like, oh my gosh,
Oh yeah, you
it's
can't
hard.
bounce. It's
It's
like
hard to
me when
bounce back.
my first slice off the tee, it's all over after
And it
that.
was
You've
I think it was
seen.
the second quarter. I mean, the game, it was like, oh geez, here we go. And I think the next drive he bounced back and rallied Iowa State back. Ohio game, struggled at times, was very sick at the time, and then he leads Iowa State on this massive comeback. And so he just, every time last year when he was up against it, he always found another level. And that's something you can't teach. That I think that's why this Iowa State coaching staff feels very comfortable with Rocco, because when stuff hits the fan, he's not going to let it get to him.
Well, it'll be interesting because you got that plus the new coordinator. I have all confidence that Mouse is going to do a great job. No reason to think he won't. But
It's an adjustment.
yeah, it is. It is, and you got to go to Iowa City in week 2, and who knows what Iowa's going to be. But I do know that their defense will be really good.
Yep.
So they're going to get tested right out of the gates, and looking forward to it. I'm finally to the point where I'm starting to look forward to football. I have a ton of work to do before then, so that's what I'm dreading. But it is finally that time of year, and Big 12 Media Days got me going. It was weird being in Vegas for that, but I liked it. Not just because it's Las Vegas and I love Las Vegas, but they did a really good job with it, and it did. I was having a hard time imagining the Arizona schools like being Big 12 members, frankly. Like
Yep.
being out there, okay. I
See
didn't
it.
like, I don't know, that Utah AD I could do without. Read some of his comments. It's like, be a little grateful, will you?
Yeah, we think a lot alike. I mean, when you're
I
getting
didn't like
married,
that.
when you're on your honeymoon, it's not time to start talking about your ex-wife, right?
Yeah, well,
Like
the ex, man. Well, she
she
did this.
Yeah.
Like you,
Just don't worry about it, right? I know you're nostalgic, but not the time, guy.
I did not like his comments.
We think a lot alike. We really do. Oh, I got to ask you, you buried the lead though. You saw Stu Mandel in Vegas?
Yeah, I did. Friend of the program, Stuart Mandel. So what's funny, God's honest truth. It's just funny how the world works. I'm there, and I had forgotten I was supposed to go get my tee shot at Game Day Men's Health on Tuesday morning.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
And I forgot to tell them that I was going to be gone. So I called my girl Stephanie at Game Day Men's Health, and I said, "Hey, it's Chris Williams. I'm going to have to come in on Thursday for my shot this week." And Stu was sitting right in front of me, and I didn't
Wait a
know.
second, you're talking about your tee shots with Mandel in the room.
And Mandel comes up and shakes my hand, and he very pleasant gentleman. He's a big fan of the pod, Blum. He goes, he said, "I don't know how much your co-hosts like me, but I like listening to you guys. Thanks, Stu. Appreciate it. I
He's
hope you
back.
enjoyed that bottle of
Uh,
Cody Road.
I would shake his hand. He's
The bottle of Cody Road did not get brought
did not
up
get
in our
brought up.
mini conversations either.
I just want our listeners to know, and I know they know, that one of our either Stuart or you and me have been more accurate in the last 4 years, and I think people can come to their own conclusions there. Scoreboard. I don't care if he likes me or not. I just want the record to reflect that we were right.
All these guys, these national guys too. This is why local guys. Here's a little inside media for you guys. There's a reason why like all of us local guys get so pissed off when you fans salivate over like national articles about the teams, because it's the same shit we've been doing for years.
Yeah.
But you guys salivate all over it because, oh, The Athletic, they wrote about us. No shit. We do it every day. Oh, and anyways, these national guys are hilarious. I like them all. There's a good crop of them right now.
Well, now you're the old
McMurphy-
guy. They all know you now.
Well, I am. Yeah, that's why I like him, because I've been
Yeah.
around for a long time. But Brett McMurphy's phenomenal. He's just incredible. He's a really good. Dennis Dodd's a great guy. Bruce Feldman's a really cool dude. But it's funny because they come to me for information on Iowa State. That's how it works, and that's where it gets annoying when you are the local guy, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
you're like,
these guys don't know. They don't know who Cooper Ebel is. Right. They have no idea.
No idea. Like, they don't know who Kale Brazina is.
And in their defense, like it's impossible because they're doing the whole country, and they're mainly doing like the national championship. That's what they do.
They're worried about the top 8 teams.
Yeah. I mean, that would be like expecting you and me to know the third string middle linebacker at Arizona. Like,
I had no idea. Yeah.
It's not what we do. But it's funny because I was thinking about that the other day. Do you remember? I mean, when coaching searches are happening at Iowa State, it's the national guys are calling guys like us. Like, that is just how, because they don't generally have the like in-depth like sources on these things because they're just never around. Like, it's just the media world is so jacked up. Like, I would love to teach a class on this at some point. Well, I guess they're going to have that sports media thing at Iowa State.
Yeah, it's coming.
You know that?
It's coming. Yeah, we're working on it.
I can't see Greenlee being like, "Hey, Williams, we need you here." Like, Greenlee has stiff-armed me for 20 years. I can't see them being like, "Hey, come on into our ecosystem."
Well, I mean, are there any other journalists taking bumps from some guy from Lincoln, Nebraska?
That's a great question.
Talk about content.
I mean, if that didn't impress, if the Greenlee School of Journalism at Iowa State wasn't impressed and proud of me being an alum on Saturday night, I don't know what else I can do.
And then at that point, it's like, you know what? I don't even need that thank you, Stu Mandel. I've done enough.
And the sweetest part of the night was everybody's like laughing at me, and your son was bawling.
He was terrified for you.
Brent's oldest son was bawling, thinking that this guy was going to beat me up. And I was like, "Oh, you're such a sweet boy." There's two people who cared: Brent's son and my youngest daughter. Everyone else was laughing.
I'm laughing, and my 6-year-old is just, having a fit. He's like, "Oh no, Uncle Chris is getting hurt." I'm like, "No, buddy, it
did hurt, Ev.
It's okay.
It did hurt."
He was like, I gotta go in there." I'm like, "No, it's not real." And I said, he's got the football players to back him up. And he's like, "Are they good enough?" I'm like,
well, that's what I told him. I said, "Ev," because he was crying and waiting for me outside of the ring.
Yeah.
And I said, "The Cyclones are going to get that guy." Yeah, I go, "He doesn't know it yet, but we're going to come back and we're going to spoil his match here later, and we're going to get that guy." And we did.
You forget the innocence of a 6-year-old. Those things. He was worried about you. I was not.
Shout out to my guy AJ Smooth from Impact Pro Wrestling. He had me in his corner. I was his enforcer.
I told Ev, I've seen Williams run his mouth one too many times on Welch Ave. This is nothing new.
Yeah, this was coming.
This is what happens.
All right, we'll be back on Wednesday. Normal week of pods coming up here. Looking forward to that. I'm sure Kicking It's got somebody. They probably have like Barack Obama coming on the pod with all the guests that these guys have been
McCarney. Sheesh. It's hard to.
I spent some time with McCarney on Thursday at Jack Whitfer's deal. And God, that guy is just an absolute treasure. It was Mac and I were both like choked up and together talking about some, and it was a special. And shout out to our guy who you and your family kindly introduced me to back in the day, Steve Loney. I just love him.
Yeah.
He's one of my all-time favorite Iowa State characters. He is the freaking best. Shout out to Coach Loney. He's living down in Branson now, he said, down in that area.
Yep. No,
He
I think
invited me to come stay with him. You think I should take him up on it?
he's a man of his word, that guy. He and his wife, Terry, they are awesome. No, but Chris, great point. I mean, we're in a lot of ways, we really are living a pretty cool dream of getting to, between McCarney and Loney and all those former players that you got to see Thursday and then Rocco's camp on Saturday, and then hosting a charity where Iowa State football players attended with all of our great listeners and fans.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those weeks where I had to go, gosh, there are some headaches, but this is really freaking cool sometimes too. And
it is.
And that was one of those weeks.
No doubt. And again, our thoughts are with Jack and his family as everything he's going through. His dad Ed listens to the podcast religiously, and love you guys. Keep fighting. For Brent Blum, my name is Chris Williams. We will be back on Wednesday with our midweek show. We'll do a lot of football and potentially some updates on this. I don't think there's going to be real updates, but we'll see. Who knows? You never know in this crazy world. For Brent, I'm Chris, signing off. Thanks to our presenting sponsor, Mechdyne. We'll see you guys Wednesday.